All right, I think we're good.
Okay, so roll call, or let's call the meeting to order, first of all, roll call. Do you want to do that? Do you want me to do that? Usually it seems like Doug does that, but
I can do it then if Doug's not here.
I mean, we can see who's here.
I
so
know
it's
exactly.
like-
I don't know how much we have to do it. I think it's helpful for Faye, but since it's virtual, we can all see
Right.
who's here and who's not. So I think we're good to go.
So maybe
If no
we
one
can
wants
just
to do
note
it.
that Matthew and EC at this point are not here. Hopefully we'll join. So, okay, minutes. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at the minutes from our last meeting. Is there anything needs to be considered before we approve them? Anyone? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, let's raise our hand. I guess it's harder to know who said aye if we're not together. So all in favor, raise your hand.
I wasn't here,
Sure.
so, okay,
You can, I mean,
abstain, I mean,
okay, so, well, there's there we go. There's Matthew. So, Matthew, we're just approving the minutes from last time.
Yes.
Do you want to, it's been moved and seconded. So far we've got, there we go. I'm just not sure, Melissa, if we can pass it with only 3 votes is my only thing. So it looks like we got 4 votes and an abstention. So we're good. Moving on. Hope that's the hardest thing we have to do today. Okay, public comments. I don't see any other public with us.
We do. There are 4.
Oh, are there?
Yep, there's 4 attendees.
Oh, okay.
Which is great. Happy people are here. If somebody from the public does want to comment, oh, we've got one. You can raise your hands. We already have one. So I'll see. It looks like Bill wants to speak. I believe we limit public comments to 3 minutes per person. Is that right, Doug? Yeah. Okay, great. So let me promote Bill over. All right. Bill, you're good to go whenever you are able to comment. Let's see. I don't think I can unmute you if that's what you're having problems with.
Is that better?
There we go. Yep.
Oh, so you haven't heard anything I said?
Nope.
No.
I'll start over then. How's that?
Perfect.
Hi, everybody. Car camping is something that I heard Rick Rogers mention last December, and it piqued my interest, and several other people are interested in it as well. You know, every year around Christmas time at our church, we decide to collect food to give to people that need food. And we collect a lot. We stack it up pretty tall, and there's always a table there. And every year on the table, there's a bunch of cases of top ramen. And I look at that top ramen every year and I think, man, you people are going to hell. You go to the grocery store, you spend 20 bucks, you fill up your entire cart with the only kind of food that poor people can actually afford themselves, and you feel righteous for giving it to them. Mr. Chairman, I move that we stop calling it car camping and we start calling it Top Ramen Solutions. This is the absolute lowest thing that we can do for somebody in need of housing. and still feel good that we're trying to help somebody. We can do better. I've told this to Mayor Rogers, and I had the same conversation. And there's no reason for us to consider stooping to the level of letting people camp in their cars or in their tents for that matter, on the streets or in the church parking lots in the city of Newberg. It amazes me that we're even considering this. I can guarantee that if this becomes part of any plan, I will get enough opposition to it to stop the plan or change the plan, however we can do. Anyway, thanks, guys. I appreciate your work. We do need to help the homeless. By the way, if you need some suggestions, I can certainly help you out in that area. Thanks, guys. Hi, Larry. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Move you back. Okay. I knew I was going to figure it out. All right. If anyone else that's attending wants to submit any public comments, not required or anything, feel free to raise your hand with the raise the hand button. It should be kind of at the bottom of your screen. But otherwise, if we don't have any more, we can move forward as well. I'm not seeing any more hands at this point.
Okay, should we move on to housing work program updates?
All right. Let's see if this works. Created some slides, mostly so that I would make sure not to forget anything. Let's see. Okay, can you all see that?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Let me. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to be doing most of the talking today. And so I'm going to be going over some of the things on the agenda today for the April 26th Affordable Housing Commission. My name is Mary Heberlin Creighton. I'm the housing planner for the city of Newberg. We'll go forward on the agenda. So we're going to start out first talking about the housing work program, giving you all an update of what's been going on. All the work that Doug and I and many others are doing in the community. And then also we'll get into the notice of funding availability for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But we'll start out first with the housing work program. So just to recap, the housing work program is a 5-year work program on a variety of topics related to housing in the city of Newberg. And so this year, I have about 6 different things on the list. I'll talk to you all about 5 of them that is currently being worked on right now. And this housing work program was renewed and adopted in November of 2021 by City Council. So it's something that goes to City Council every year, and we give updates to them, and they also renew it and adopt it as well. So we'll start out with one of the things on the list, which is the housing production strategy. This is a requirement by the state of Oregon to do a housing production strategy. We are starting that right now. It's actually been going for a good couple of months now. We had our first Citizen Advisory Committee meeting on April 12th, 2022, which you all act as the Citizen Advisory Committee. So some of this will be very familiar to you all. But we had a presentation by the consultants for this project, giving us kind of a rundown of what an HPS is, what should be expected in it, and kind of what the state of housing currently is in Newberg and where things are needed, where do we expect to see things to come in for that housing production strategy so that we meet the needs of the Newberg community related to housing. So that's the first thing on the housing work program. Are there any questions on this particular project. Ooh, okay. All right. So the next is, and I think we've presented on this before to you all as well, it's the multifamily code audit. So what this is a Department of Land Conservation and Development Technical Assistance Grant. The state of Oregon requires any type of needed housing, which is defined as basically any type of housing is needed housing, to have clear and objective standards. And so what that means is standards that typically are numerical, quantitative, things that is very easy for somebody to say, I've met that requirement. An example would be the requirement of a building having 12% windows facing the street, 12% of the building front should be windows. That's an easy number to say, yes, I've met that. No, I don't meet that. And so we have those types of standards for basically our single family housing, all of our middle housing with our most recent middle housing updates. And now we need to make sure that we're doing this for our multifamily developments. And so we are kicking off starting that project. We actually just had our first kickoff meeting with our consultants on April 18th. The Planning Commission will act as the Citizen Advisory Committee, so we'll have multiple meetings with them on this project. It'll run concurrently with the housing production strategy. It'll probably end around the same time, which I didn't mention for the housing production strategy, which should be May of 2023. And so, like I said, this is going to be us to do an audit, making sure where is it in our code that we're not meeting these clear and objective standards, and then adjusting the code so that we are creating clear and objective standards. And we'll be engaging with the Planning Commission and the community on figuring out what those clear and objective standards will be for multifamily developments. And again, multifamily developments are any development on the same lot that is 5 or more units. Any questions on this particular project that we're working on? No. Okay, great. So the next project that we're working on is the car camping project, fostering car camping in the city of Newberg. Again, this was on the housing work program as a way to create options for car camping within the city of Newberg in a way that will best fit the city, for the city of Newberg. So what we've done is we've partnered with Masters of Urban and Regional Planning students at Portland State University. They're sort of taking the lead on this project, and I'm assisting them as well as Doug. And they're working to kind of create what are the best options for car camping in the city of Newberg. And so they're doing a ton of outreach and engagement, as well as figuring out what a lot of other cities in Oregon are doing around this topic. So they've completed their first phase of engagement, which was reaching out to a bunch of different stakeholders within the city of Newberg. And a summary was provided to you all on kind of some of the themes they found from those stakeholder interviews. And then they've also been working on a best practices research on what 14 other cities in Oregon are doing. So this is not an uncommon thing to have. It's actually many cities of a variety of different sizes across the state have car camping programs as a way to help with those that are living out of their cars while they're waiting to find more transitional or permanent housing. So part of that, their next phases will be to continue doing engagement with more stakeholders within the city of Newberg. They actually are going to have a focus group, I believe tomorrow, with a variety of different stakeholders, as well as creating a survey for those stakeholders to take, and also doing engagement with those that are actually houseless and living in cars, or those who have experienced that in the past, so that we have lived experience of understanding what it's like for those people, which is highly important when you're creating policies around housing like this or car camping. So the ultimate goal will be the master's students will provide City Council with a couple of different recommendations on how to proceed forward with this proposal. And City Council will make a final decision on how they want to proceed, if they want to proceed, and what types of ways would they want to proceed with that. So it'll be June 21st will be the work session with City Council and Planning Commission will also be there. And I highly encourage anyone on this commission, if they want to join as well. I'll give you all the information on when that meeting is. And again, it's also available. It's open to the public. It's a public meeting. So anyone that wants to hear more about the work that the students have been doing on June 21st are welcome to attend. Any questions on this?
Is there any way for people like Bill that spoke earlier, or myself, or anyone else that wants to interact or have input with the students who are spearheading all this, besides just, you know, showing up to the meeting and, you know, doing their 3-minute blurb, maybe some more in-depth discussion time or something like they're doing with the other stakeholders?
Yeah, I'm happy to keep them informed on potential stakeholders within the community, as well as we'll hopefully to have some more general outreach about this as well, so that it's not just focused stakeholders like they've been doing in the currently. We hope to actually have more bigger kind of overall community engagement as well on this. So yes, we will be making sure that there are opportunities for people in the community to comment as well. Okay, I think Melissa, I see your hand.
Can I say something, Mary?
Oh yeah.
So I wanted to just encourage, like, as this topic continues along, I can hear the sentiment from Bill, and I think that there would be other people in our community that are going to say that it's pretty similar things. And I think that going into a topic like this would be a great idea to have prepared the reasons why this is an option considered in cities. Number one, why consider it? And then I think the lived experience is going to be great, but showing if there has been success, how has it been successful, those kinds of things. I'm sure that's on the docket, but just as part of this committee or commission, you know, I'd like to voice that as a member of the community as well, and because I can hear that coming already. So
Yeah, and if we want to, well, I guess the next Affordable Housing Commission will be after this, but it'll be an ongoing discussion even past June 21st, which we will definitely need to be doing a lot of community engagement around. It's not something that on the 21st will be like, okay, now we know exactly what we're going to do and it's going to get approved. That's not expected to happen. It's just a work session. So it's really starting the conversation. And the master students are doing a lot of really good background work for us so that we can kind of have a more focused approach when we go out and talk with the community about this. And so, yes, we plan to do a lot more community engagement around this. We're not trying to rush it or anything, but the master students are helping us a lot with the background work. Yeah. But good suggestions, Shannon. Melissa.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, so I'm on the link to the city's website about this issue. And it says that there was a 2020 point in time count for the county of homelessness. So my question is, I have a couple questions. Is that the most recent point in time? And how many of those people were in Newberg? And currently, do we have an idea of the numbers of people camping in cars in Newberg?
Yep, so the master students are working on that right now. Unfortunately, point in time survey counts are very hard to get accurate on because so many things change quickly in terms of those that are living out of their cars and those that are houseless in general. The county has, I think, data from 2022 that they did in January. It's not been made available yet. The master students are working with the county to kind of get those numbers. But unfortunately, it's countywide. So any sort of data just for Newberg is going to be an educated guess at this point. But the numbers that I was seeing was something around 30 something that they know of, maybe that were living out of their cars in the city of Newberg, 30 individuals. Sorry, 30 houseless individuals. And then from that, you would assume some are car camping from there. So it's not a number that we are going to say, yeah, that's exactly it, but we have at least some guidelines. And again, the master students are getting more detailed information from the county on that.
And when we say car camping, does that also include people parking RVs on, in neighborhoods in the side of the road?
Typically, you would probably consider those people to be car camping. As part of this work, we really do need to define what is it that we consider car camping. So any future proposals, any policy that we create will have to define what car camping is. And we as the community will have to decide, does that include people living in their RVs, or is it more people that are living in actual cars, vehicles? So that's just something that we, as a city, as a community, will have to define better. But typically, you would kind of include them in that. But obviously, RVs are a little bit different because they have, facilities that you can use in it, but usually they're not connected to anything either. So, yeah, good question. Any other questions from the commission? And I'll keep you all informed on all the information that comes out from the master's students. And then obviously any community engagement that we do, you all will be notified as well as obviously with the regular community. Okay. So next is tiny homes on wheels. This was a goal that has been on the housing work program now for I believe a few years, which is the goal of allowing tiny homes on wheels as an alternative to housing, as an alternative housing type on residential zones. So currently, any shelter on wheels is considered a vehicle, and vehicles are not allowed to be considered permanent dwellings per the city code, per building code, all of these sort of things. So we're working on creating an option for these tiny homes on wheels. They're a little bit different. They're not RVs, but they're actual housing structures, but on wheels, and allowing those to be used as permanent housing on residentially zoned property. So part of that is doing research, trying to figure out what other cities in the state of Oregon are doing. There's a lot of ongoing regulations with the building code that we need to figure out and make sure that we're meeting all of those standards. And again, it's something that's kind of new. From my research, there haven't been a lot of communities that are allowing it as a permanent housing type because in the past, it hasn't really been allowed per building code, but with some recent state changes in the building code, this is now becoming an option actually for people. So right now, the city of Portland, the city of Eugene are two that have some regulations that allow this in residentially zoned areas. So we're gonna work with them, make sure that we understand all of the options, and then this will be a potential code change in the city code. Again, would have to go through a public hearing process, a lot of community input, but this is something that's on the list for us to look into. Any questions on this one?
I think I'll just say that I've heard so much input from people in the community. When I say I'm on the Affordable Housing Commission, this is like the #1 thing everybody talks about. So
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different housing type that, they're much smaller units. People like the idea of them being on wheels so that they can be moved around if need be. But previously the building code has kind of made it a little bit harder to allow as a permanent dwelling.
I just
Well,
wanted
and
to step
like it or
in.
not, I'm sorry.
Just
I was-
wanted to, go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like it or not, there's a few of them out there already being used. So
I just want to remind the commission that, this housing work program, you spent a year working on this. It was an outgrowth of the housing Newberg group, which spent a year looking at issues about housing and affordability within the community. And the work program, as it was originally structured, came through the Affordable Housing Commission with a recommendation to the city council. The city council added some things to it as well. And so that was in November of 2020 when they finally adopted the work program. As Mary mentioned earlier, last November, they got their first annual review of that work program. So things do shift and change. The housing production strategy wasn't supposed to happen this year, but we got a grant, so that moved forward. All of a sudden, here comes the code audit provisions. We had substantial completion stuff to deal with, another legislative action that came from the legislature. So that plan does shift and change, but I just want to remind some of our newer members, like, where did this thing come from?
Yes, good history there, Doug. Joyce, I see your hand raised.
My question about tiny homes, this is like a bridge housing. It's not like real wealth building, right? Like it's not a economic recovery plan for people who don't have net worth in homes. This is we're calling it alternative housing, but it's anything on wheels. Doesn't it depreciate? I guess like, it's not like a home when I think, oh, if I buy a home, I get money, I can sell that later. This is kind of a.
Yeah, it's a little, I mean, it's obviously different than your regular type of house that's on a foundation, right? So it's going to stay there. So there's a lot of unknowns about this type of housing as permanent housing. Yeah, how would it look if somebody wanted to sell their tiny home? All these sort of things. It is a really great tool to create more affordable housing for people. I know that we've seen interest from different churches in the community about wanting to do something like this because it's a more affordable option to get housing in there. But again, we don't allow it currently. So it's something that we just need to be doing more research on, really. It's not a guarantee that it's going to be something that we can put in our code. Like I said, there's only a couple of other cities in the state that have been doing this because it's so new, but it's definitely something we want to look into as a way to create more housing options for people in the community.
Well, I guess I would throw in that not all housing is designed to build wealth or whatever. I mean, some people are in a state where they just want an affordable place to live, or they want to downsize. They want, so I think we're seeing tiny homes across the country just blowing up as far as the interest in them from young families that want to simplify to retirees that need something small, and then also obviously the transitional housing side of it as well. But yeah, again, overall it's great for people to buy something, gain wealth, be able to move up, but not everybody is in that place and even is interested in that too. So just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, the other part of that, now that we've adopted the cottage cluster provisions, we've had inquiries about, could you do a cottage cluster with tiny homes on wheels? And so there you have to have a minimum of 4 units to be able to qualify under the cottage cluster. And there is a footprint size, and of course, tiny homes on wheels are much smaller. So those kinds of questions are being asked out there.
Yep. Melissa, I see your hand up.
I had a question for Shannon. When you're hearing people ask, they're asking about tiny homes and if they're allowed or wanting them, are they wanting them to live in or have like a secondary unit? Or are they thinking of them as like solving a homelessness, affordable housing problem? What are they asking about?
Yeah, kind of, I've heard the most is like people that want maybe to have, instead of an ADU on their property, they're thinking, oh, I could have a tiny home on the property and my relative or my mother could stay in this, or my kid or something like that. That's usually the scenarios that I've heard coming up. And then some people that have houselessness as an issue in their mind, that comes up as the first livable alternative to living on the street. So that's the other thing that I would hear. So.
Yeah, and there are definitely companies out there that build these prefab tiny homes, and all you have to do is just buy one and then put it on a trailer and bring it in. So I think sometimes it seems like a more simple option to create housing on your property than, say, having to build an ADU with on a foundation. So I think that's part of it too. It seems like a more simple process for somebody that maybe doesn't understand how development works or doesn't want to go through the process of building a brand new structure and hiring a developer, contractor, those types of things. There are prefabricated ADUs out there too that you could potentially buy as well, but I think that's part of the appeal. Joyce.
Yeah, just one more quick question. Does this seem like a viable solution then for migrant worker communities? Is that part of our outreach to them to support their ability to move around and work with something that's familiar? I'm just looking, I know that they had the market for a lot of the mobile homes and the fires wiped them out. And a lot of those communities have still not recovered. So I wonder if this is a way that we could market to their recovery or at least ability to keep working.
Yeah, I actually heard from somebody the other week that some of the only allowed uses in floodplains and things like that, where there's more potential for natural disaster, are RV parks, because you could potentially move your home in a quick way if you needed to. So this could be an option for, housing in for people that need to move quickly out of dangerous situations. It could be really useful for migrant farmers or people like that. So yeah, I think it just provides a lot of different options that people haven't had the ability to have in the past. And so, yeah. Okay, any other questions? And again, as we get more concrete information, more research has been done, I'll bring it back to you all, and we can continue having conversations on how we want to see this in the city. Okay. And then construction excise tax implementation. We've talked about this before with you all, but just a brief reminder of what we're doing regarding this. So we adopted a construction excise tax, I think a couple of years ago now, Doug, right? And so we're getting money for that from that tax, which is great. For the first 6 months, we've collected just under $2,405. $2,000, yeah, you get it. So we have some money coming in, which is great. And this money can be used for a variety of different things. Some communities use it solely to fund affordable housing projects, not fully fund them. It depends on how much money you have, but to put towards affordable housing projects. Some cities use it as a way to waive or reduce system development charges for housing projects. It's just a really great tool that we can use to reduce costs for housing development, which, as we know, it continues to rise to build housing in terms of labor costs, costs of materials, costs of land, all of that continues to go up. So what I'm doing now is researching what other cities are doing. Again, this is something that's happening all over the state of Oregon. So there's a lot of materials that we can look at. A lot of cities do it in a variety of different ways. So what I'm working on is creating a set of criteria so that we can figure out what types of housing projects we want to fund through this program. What's the set of criteria? So that if we get multiple applications, we know what types of projects we want to provide money to, that sort of thing. Very similar to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we do currently, but this is through the construction excise tax. And there are some standards that we need to meet regarding state standards. And so it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more structured than the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, just because of state standards that we need to meet regarding construction excise tax programs. So again, future Affordable Housing Commission meetings, I hope to have more confirmed criteria that we can kind of work over, and then come up with a final set of standards that we want to use so that we can start funding housing projects in the city of Newberg. And so my goal is for the next Affordable Housing Commission, I'm going to have draft criteria for you so that we can kind of get this moving, because we are continuing to get money in this fund, which is great. So we need to figure out how we're actually going to provide it to developments in the city. Any questions on this one?
Not a question, Mary. My assumption is that at that future meeting, when you bring that it won't be just you bringing and here, approve this, but we can have some discussion about
Correct.
it and
Yes.
talk through, maybe there may be priorities or there may be, some tweaks or whatever. So. good.
Oh, yes.
But
Yeah.
it's great to have a starting point to, not to
Mhm.
just be creating something out of nothing. So.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, no, it'll be a discussion. So I don't expect us to, come in, be like, this looks great. I want it to be more of a discussion on where we as a commission want to see these funds used for. So yeah.
I would, Mary, if I can kind of throw in. So Mary's goal is to get this program stood up by the end of the calendar year. So you do have 2 more official meetings scheduled, July and October, I think it is. As we have that discussion about it, we might need to schedule another meeting because we ultimately have to get something in front of city council to adopt. We have had conversations with some developers who want to build affordable housing, who are interested in the construction excise tax fund. And if the development pace continues as we are seeing currently, we could have around $1 million in that fund by the end of December of 2022.
Yeah. Shannon.
Mary, yeah, I was going to comment. I thought when we first went over this that the numbers were much lower on the possible fund collection. Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but this is a great number, I think, to start it out, right?
Yeah, so what happened when we went through all of this, Shannon, is we were looking in that first 6 months of the program. So it's been in place for about 15 months now for the collection portion of it. We thought about 300,000, about 150,000 in that first 6 months. And the pace of development, that was based on historical trends. Development has happened quicker, where we thought we would get about 300,000 a year in this roughly first 6 months. We've already gotten 244. So it's been activities related to housing and other commercial development have occurred, such as Crestview Crossing, River Run down the south end of town, Riverland, King's Landing up on the north edge of town. So it's just that pace has quickened beyond what we had originally modeled back when we were putting together the program. But it's an ebb and flow. Again, we have a land supply constraint in Newberg. So though we may be seeing this going up right now, you know, in a couple of years, we could see the revenue stream drop back down to some of the historic modeling that we have done.
Yep. But like Doug said, we're definitely getting more than what was projected. So that's great. At least for the time being. Any other questions, comments on this? We'll definitely be talking about it a lot more in the next meetings. Okay. All right. Any final questions on the housing work program before I move on to the next agenda item? Nope. Okay. Great. Okay. So next agenda item is the notice for funding availability for the 2021-2022 fiscal year for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. For those that haven't been here before for this type of discussion, it hasn't changed much since the last year. The only major changes that I've done with these forms are obviously change the dates, change the amount of money that's in the trust fund that's available for either loans or grants, and then update the median family income, which is per the HUD numbers from 2021. And then obviously update City of Newberg branding, design, and then I've created the application to be fillable so that you don't have to print it out to fill it out. So nothing major really changed. None of the criteria changed. Nothing like that. But for any new people, do you have any questions on kind of the documents, how the Affordable Housing Trust Fund works? I may have to rely on Doug on some of that, but yeah, Melissa.
I think the 2022 new income limits just came out like this week. I mean, so it's a consideration, or what is today? Last week. I mean, they're even higher than the year before. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because news on the street is 2023 is expected for the income limits to go back down.
Ah, okay.
COVID numbers. So anyways.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can still change the HUD numbers when we go to council with this, but that's good to know that there's now more updated numbers, because I'll want to add the most updated on there.
Okay, so Mary, I'm reading that you would like us to make a motion to approve these. Do we get to see them, or do we just, I mean, not that I don't trust you, you know, what you just told us, but
yes, they were in the
okay.
packet.
Okay, never mind then. I mean, I looked through the packet. I'm just going, okay.
Yeah. I can bring it up though. I can share it on the screen if that would be helpful.
I mean, it might be good to just throw it up there for
Sure.
so people can see what it looks like.
Yeah. Let me see what I can do here.
EC's here. I hadn't seen you yet. Hi, EC. Looks like
Sorry, I
you're
was
cooking
late.
dinner. Looks like you're cooking dinner.
I am. Is that okay if I multitask? I did prep, so
if
I
you
know what's going
share.
on. You're always welcome. Always welcome, Larry.
Okay, let me pull up the application first. Let's see here. Okay. All right, can you all see that? Yeah, great. Yep, so branding updates here. Date updates. Changed it so that they have to contact me instead of Doug. Those little things. And then, yes, so it's all fillable now, which is awesome. And so it should be a lot easier for people to apply without having to print it out. And of course, they can always print it out too if they want. And then obviously this is the criteria here as part of their application. They'll have to show how they meet some of the criteria, and then we just have those definitions. So this number here will probably have to be updated. But for reference, the median family income for the city of Newberg from HUD in 2021, it was $96,900. So it sounds like it's actually more now for 2022. Joyce, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was looking at this NOFA, and as far as like the amount of points that go to the partnerships, it's like 5, right? But I was wondering, is there another place where working with, like, say, disadvantaged businesses or other of those type of stakeholders who might be less advantaged in these projects would be would lift up their scoring at all?
I don't know. I might rely on Doug on some of the criteria stuff because I wasn't here when you all set it up. But it does look like 5 points here goes towards partnerships with the community. And so you're suggesting if it's partnership with businesses in the community that are.
Well, sometimes there's like that MWESB,
Yep.
like this minority
Mhm.
women,
Yep.
emerging small business, disadvantaged, a disabled veteran. There's these kind of like criteria that sometimes bringing them on board as part of a project, there's like, I don't know, the scoring, I don't know, sometimes reflects that. I just didn't know where you might point me to that, if there was that here.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good question. Again, I might rely on Doug or other commission members that were here before on that.
I feel like in the past, we've been pretty discriminatory, if that's the right word, in scoring. Like if there weren't partnerships, we didn't give them points, you know? So, and I do think what you're saying would fall within this. And if they were really good at those type of partnerships, then they would get 5 points. But I mean, Doug, am I recalling this correctly?
You are correct. So somebody came in, they didn't have a partnership. Basically, as the commission went through your scoring, let me back up. So staff does not score the applications when they come in. So what we've done in the past is we've provided you all of the information that has been submitted, if information had been submitted, and then you went through your scoring based upon the points. So when you got to the one that Joyce was just talking about, partnerships, if there was no partnerships, some commission members then gave it a 0. And so they got no points essentially out of that. If an application came in and they had several partners, then you as a commissioner could score that and say, well, how strong do I think that is? You know, one of you might give it a 5 and another one might give it a 3.
Yep. So yeah, there's a little bit of discretion on how you would want to rate that. It isn't like you said, it doesn't dictate that there's extra points for working with those types of businesses. But it looks like there's flexibility to be able to, you know, give more points according to certain things. But obviously we would want to put it as criteria if we were gonna rate somebody higher for doing that. So yeah.
So the most recent one, I think, is an example of when it came in as a grant, is that came in from Habitat, and they had partnerships across the board. And I think most of the commission members sitting at that time, you gave it towards the higher end of that 0. Excuse me. of that 0 to 5 category. So yes, there is discretion in this process. But remember, yours is a recommendation that goes to the city council. The city council ultimately makes the final decision.
Joyce, are you saying that you would like them to receive that category to have more points involved?
I was just noticing that it was a different amount of points, and I was wondering if that aligns with the intent to encourage the partnerships. And if there was no description about what those partnerships, like what their target group population they're trying to lift up, I was just finding it difficult to sort of weigh what does it mean to have multiple versus like deep partnership in a targeted area.
That would be a topic for this commission to discuss. You have the ability to modify the criteria and the points.
Well, and I mean, I'm not opposed to change. I also think that the wording, you know, in the parentheses, it says multiple organizations involved, etc. That's, you know, that's a possibility, but maximizing partnerships could be one or two really, really good partnerships, you know, and maximizing that to get the most out of that, as well as then, you know, somebody could have a whole bunch of organizations, but it's really not that great. They're not really doing that much. It's just kind of in name only. So just because there's multiple doesn't mean they're good. So yeah, I mean, now whether or not that's enough points in the, you know, for that area, could be certainly discussed. I guess my question for the commission here is, you know, we've been asked if we would move to, you know, approve moving this to the city council. So the question is, are we ready to do that, or do we want to, you know, dive into the particulars of everything? My assumption is these criteria are the same as we've had the last few years.
Correct. Nothing was changed to the criteria.
Yeah, it was 4 years ago, roughly, and I have to look back at the notes, as there was a revamp of the criteria, and we spent a lot of time working on the scoring and so forth. I'm going to throw something out there. If the commission wants to further discuss the criteria, we can do that. We can actually bring this back to your July meeting. We can change and delay sending the NOFA out and put it in as 22-23. That's completely feasible to do.
What do you think, folks? On the one hand, I like us to feel good about what we have. On the other hand, I also want to have this opportunity for people, and the longer it sits, the longer people are waiting to be able to access it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm interested to hear more and to see wording that would impact the idea itself. Strikes me as important, making certain criteria perhaps clearer or more overt in a way that encourages people to come already with those deeper relationships. So I would be interested in seeing wording that would accomplish that task and strengthen what we already have. I don't imagine it would involve a whole lot of reworking of our scoring as much as it would reworking the way that we communicated our scoring and ranking of, like you said, Larry, multiple relationships. None of them, they could all be a half inch deep, and we'd rather, be able to weigh, we have a 10-year relationship working with X organization and weigh that heavier. So I think wording that could help with that and reinforce what our commitment is as a group to those who are applying would be worth evaluating. So I'd be open to holding off moving to a vote on this until we could work on some language that could take the good comments into account.
Okay, others? Shannon, your hand's up.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I think Joyce's point is very valid. And in my brain, I can't wrap my mind around how to accomplish that. But I think it's a good idea, when you have disabled population or veteran populations, etc. Like it would, I would like to have that weight a little bit heavier. Just because with affordable housing, some of the more vulnerable or disadvantaged populations, like that affordable housing should be provided to them since they are more vulnerable, so I don't know. I just don't know how. Yeah, exactly. Like EC said, I don't know how to word that. So, but I think discussion would be good. So I'm kind of more in favor of that.
Melissa?
I'd vote for delaying the approval and having more conversation. And also, I guess just maybe ask for, if there's something that you're thinking of right now, we could have Mary maybe help us along with the conversation, come with a few examples, and maybe even looking at 5 or possibly 10 points, just depending on how, just to give some ideas, because to wait 2 months and then have the discussion, it would be nice to start from somewhere, like as Shannon said, with some ideas. And then also just making sure that, Joyce, if there were other things that you wanted to have included there, then just make sure that we're getting some of that in maybe ahead of time.
So might I suggest to the commission, if you have some thoughts, email your thoughts directly to Mary so we can start to gather those.
Yep.
And we put that way when we come back in July, we've put it together. We might have done some wordsmithing in between and so forth to bring something back to you to be able to respond to, than trying to create everything in one meeting, which is always a challenge.
Yeah. Can I maybe even ask Joyce clarification? Would you, if you had your preference, which, you have a right to your preference here. So, would you be talking about adding another category that specifically talks about those kind of connections? Or are you satisfied that this category, if it, number 10, if it is defined better, could take that place, I guess? And then are the points right or whatever for them?
Yeah, my feedback was that you could accomplish it within the same scope of this category, and that just a little bit more definition might actually elicit some of these things we'd like to know more about, and how those play into the robustness also of the project being able to affect its long-term outreach. I think it was kind of one of the reasons I was wondering, like you guys said, about the depth of that partnership and how they share their data a little bit.
Okay, good. Matt?
I was just thinking that, of course, we always want it to be, well-defined. And I also am on board with the fact that maybe it should weigh a little heavier for that category even. The budget and timeline are through thorough and realistic category versus the project maximizes partnerships in the community. To me, would seem more like it would be something that would be an equal weight, not, oh, is it realistic and pushing it through on a budget and timeline more important than actually maximizing partnerships in the, and that's what it shows right now. So
Melissa, did you have, I wasn't sure if your hand was still up or if your hand was up again.
I think it's down now.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, it sounds like there is a general consensus that we would like to tweak this a bit. And so what I heard from Doug is if you have specific wording or specific even, okay, this is really important to me, make sure and let Mary know that. And when and then Mary, again, you could maybe share out some possible wording with us even ahead of, so people could, maybe there could even be a little bit of back and forth so that hopefully when we get to the meeting next time, there's more just ability to say, yeah, that addressed what we wanted to do. We can move ahead. I mean, we can certainly have discussion at the meeting next time as well. And actually, I think it's helpful to, sometimes it feels like all we do is listen here and then, say, good job, let's move on. So it is good to have some input as well. So anyway.
So, Mr. Chair, one of the things we'll have to do, and we can do that, so if you can get us your thoughts and ideas, is we will take a informational report, at least to the city council in June, to let them know that we are not doing a NOFA for fiscal year 21-22 based upon a revisit of the criteria, and that we will do one in 22-23.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a quick historical note for some of the folks who are newer. There's not been a lot of pressure on these funds. And so it is not as if we have pushed off several applicants who are seeking to use these funds in this year by delaying, reworking this section 10 or other parts. So we are not delaying a needful project by doing this in historical terms.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Frankly, these have been underutilized for the most part, I think, over the last several years, especially the loan side of things. Okay, so does that get us to the end of the?
Shannon, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, was that, I can't tell something if it's still up or if it's up again.
I didn't mean to have my hand up. I apologize. I was
Okay.
typing in.
Okay. Okay, well, this sounds good. We'll hold off then on any sort of recommendation to council on the NOFA documents, and we'll plan to talk more about it at the next commission meeting. Again, feel free to send me any sort of edits, ideas. I'll sort of try and formulate some potential changes, and then we can have a further discussion at the next commission on those.
Okay, good. Does that bring us to the end of our agenda?
I think so. I think
Believe it
EC
does. wanted
mentioned.
to, yeah.
I would just like to thank the chairman and the city for the opportunity to serve on the Affordable Housing Commission for the last several years. I have accepted a scholarship and a position at American University College of Law in Washington, D.C. And so very excited. It's a PIP scholarship, which is their public interest law scholarship, which will allow me to continue to learn more about a lot of the law that I've touched on and had opportunity to hear, just everything from housing and various community laws. So July will be my last meeting, if that's acceptable. And I will have to step down then and be transitioning to Washington, D.C. in, August, start classes later on. So again, this has been a great privilege. I've worked with Larry for the better part of 8-9 years, probably between our Habitat time, and also Shannon, we worked at Habitat anyway. So been a great blessing. So thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's
for
great.
you.
That's great. My daughter is a master's graduate of American University in DC, and let's see, what was it? I'm blanking all of a sudden. But yeah, that's had a great experience there, and didn't love living in DC, but she seems to be back. They're actually living in Baltimore now, and most of the work is remote anyway. They just go to DC once a week or so. All right. Well,
Mr. Chair, one thing.
Yes.
So EC, if you could send me an email
Yes.
letting me know that you are going to be stepping down after the July meeting, then I can forward that on to the city recorder's office, and they will do what they need to do with that information.
Very good. Well, and again, I know I just re-upped and it was down to American and Lewis and Clark, and which would have allowed me to stay. And I was hoping if I was able to stay in the area, that doing public interest law, being able to serve here would still be an option in my community. And it was just recently that the PIP scholarship came through. So and the final decision was made. But Doug, I will absolutely get you a letter of resignation with the effective date here shortly.
Appreciate it.
they can't give you your gold watch unless they have that. So make sure you get that in. Or gold colored anyway. I mean, we'll see. All right. So our next meeting at this point, what we know is July 26th. Are we looking at 4 o'clock at this point as our regular time? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Anything else for the good of the order before we're done? Not to brag, I get to go to Hamilton tonight. So there we go. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm jealous.
We went on Sunday. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is our Christmas present to ourselves, each other, and actually our daughter's going with us too. So looking forward to it.
You know
All right.
Ryan Howard, Larry?
Yeah.
He's going tonight too.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm glad we didn't get tickets for the times that they were all had the flu, and because they for about a week there they didn't get to do it. So fortunately, that seems to be done. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, and have a good rest of your day and your week. And we will see you at least in July. We are adjourned.
Thanks all.
Bye.